He takes his sister and begins to walk away. That's when we notice this dickhead Cap guy in the shadows, keeping an eye on our boy. Later, he arrives at the council of all the shady people running this game and reports back that the mission has failed. It goes without saying that the big shots are not thrilled to hear this, and the hooded guy tries to argue that it was all because of Ghislain Pertium. The name catches their attention, because how could a useless bastard from the north pull off such a big move? One of the big shots also claims that as far as he knows, Ghislain is a useless piece of shit, so he's not sure why this reporter is using him as an excuse for their failed mission. But the guy tries to argue that Ghislain was completely different from the information and rumors they had about him. The way he handled everything with such finesse made him feel like a completely different person. He tries to assure his masters that he has already taken care of things with Degard, so starting the territorial war won't be an issue. He begs for one more chance to prove himself. But the big shot gets angry, because the setback from this failure has caused immense trouble, and everyone in the council is losing their minds over it. They all collectively tell this bastard to just eliminate that bastard Ghislain. That's when the big shot among the big shots speaks up and breaks the tension. He asks the hooded guy how he plans to handle that kid, to which the hooded guy states that he's going to make a duel happen naturally, and the one who is going to fight against Ghislain is quite powerful. They ask who that guy is, to which the hooded guy explains that his name is Cain Loges, and he's famous for his strength-based swordsmanship. Despite his young age, he is the epitome of strength, and he's confident that there is no one in the north who can match his power. Not to mention, Cain is Ghislain's cousin, so the hooded guy is sure it won't feel forced to have them meet. Everyone goes silent as they begin to consider this plan. The big shot, however, makes it clear that if this mission also ends in failure, there will be no next time. Terrified, the hooded guy quickly promises to deliver promising results this time. The scene transitions to the Pertium Castle training hall, where we see Fergus, who is here to announce mealtime to our boy. That's when Fergus notices a rope of mana coming at him. It grabs the sword hanging right beside him, and the mana rope quickly starts retracting back with the sword attached to it. After enough practice, Ghislain is glad to see he's making progress. That's when he notices the old man, who promptly bows his head in front of our boy, apologizing for interrupting the training session. But the old man can't hide his curiosity, and asks how Ghislain just did that. Ghislain nonchalantly explains that it's mana threads, using mana like string. In his previous life, he used it all the time, but at his current skill level, he needs to implode his core to use it like he used to, because he currently lacks enough mana. However, if he just makes one thread to use less mana, my guy is confident he can still use it effectively, despite having a limited supply of mana. Fergus is sure he's trained his mana for a long time, but he's never seen anything like this before. Now that the old man thinks about it, he remembers that just a while ago, Ghislain didn't even use mana, let alone train with it. He can't figure out how our boy came up with the idea of using mana like this. Anyhow, Fergus snaps his attention back to the task he came for. He humbly tilts his head slightly and expresses his gratitude for protecting the young lady. But Ghislain doesn't see any need for anyone's gratitude. She's his sister, and he would have done the same unconditionally. A few days pass after that, and the festival is paused. It only makes sense since a guardian knight tried to traffic the young lady. We then meet Elena, whose face is far from pleasant. She seems quite annoyed that no one believes her when she says Ghislain is the one who saved her. She asks her brother why he doesn't try to convince them, to which my guy just shrugs it off. He doesn't care, and besides, they wouldn't believe him either. Belinda's blood is boiling just thinking about how the culprits were actually Jamal and Philly, the ones who tried to take Elena out. Whatever the case, Ghislain is glad his sister survived, and that he was able to stop the war from happening. But he is sure that those bastards won't give up that easily, and he can't stop them on his own forever. So, he needs to grow his military force. Right at that moment, a maid arrives with food. When the maid serves him, Ghislain finds it odd that he is being served a dry piece of bread instead of something delicious. He asks Belinda about it, to which she explains that it's one of the consequences of the recent mess. Right then, a fat sucker starts screaming out loud, demanding compensation for the damage caused by the festival's cancellation. And it's not just one fatty, there's a whole group of merchants protesting outside the castle. Their demand is simple. They want compensation for their losses. Our boy looks out the window and inquires about the angry mob. That's when Belinda reminds him that this country is full of merchants who make a living from the profits brought in by the festival. Last year the merchants had a great season, but since the festival was cancelled after just one day, it makes sense that they're furious. Ghislain didn't realize until now just how badly his country is doing economically. He knows that if he doesn't meet the merchants' demands, the situation will only get more aggressive. So, he tells Fergus to command the soldiers to calm the angry mob down. But the old man casually replies that they don't have any soldiers. He explains that most of them have been dispatched to the Forest of Monsters for reconstruction, because of the damage caused by the orc raid. Well, it seems like Ghislain's situation is even more dire than he had thought. You see, Pertium is basically in a state of eternal war. To the north, they constantly have to deal with barbarians, and on the other side, there's the forest of monsters, from which monsters can appear at any moment. Since he doesn't have money, he won't have soldiers either, which only adds to his worries. He takes Belinda with him for a talk, and under his breath, he reminds her that since she's the one managing his money, they need to calm the merchants down somehow. But the lady breaks it down to him that there is no money left. When he asks why, she reminds him that the Lord cut off his allowance because he always spent the money like water. The thought of being broke disgusts him, so he demands that she lend him some money. But the lady says she doesn't have any either. All the odds seem to be against him. No money, no soldiers, what the hell does he even have? Without even the smallest amount of money, there's nothing he can do. Even with his knowledge of the future, he's going to need funds first to make any of it work. Just as he's thinking about it, Ricardo comes rushing in at full sprint. He's completely out of breath, and our boy quickly asks him what's going on and why he's in such a hurry. Ricardo, practically shouting at the top of his lungs, says there's a problem. Apparently, young Master Cain wishes to see our boy. The mention of Cain catches Ghislaine off guard. That's when we see one of our boy's knights, Commander Scoven, getting absolutely destroyed by Cain. Cain's jacked up muscles and sheer strength are literally crushing the knight's face like it's a tomato. Each punch lands with the force of a hammer, and it's clear Cain isn't holding back. The last punch finally knocks the poor knight out cold. Ghislaine arrives just in time to see his knight on the ground, totally injured. The look on Ghislaine's face makes it clear that our boy is not thrilled to see his knight in such a state. Anger burning in his eyes, he turns to face his cousin. The bastard in front of him is so huge that Ghislaine literally looks like a puny punk. The smile on the big guy's face is even terrifying. Along with this jacked up dude, there's also his escort knight. You see, the heir of the Logis County, with whom House Pertium had an alliance, is Cain Logis. He was both Ghislaine's only friend at the time, and his enemy. The big guy walks toward Ghislaine after beating up his knight. But Ghislaine doesn't flinch. He calmly asks Ricardo what exactly led to this situation. Ricardo quickly explains that they responded to a report of a disturbance at a tavern, where they found Cain and his escort knight. It is when Cain asked Commander Scoven if the rumors about young Master Ghislaine were true. So, Commander Scoven explained the details of the rumors about our boy. But that's when Cain grabs the commander by the mouth, because Cain believes the commander is lying under his breath, and he would not tolerate someone lying in front of the heir of Logis. With that, Ricardo wraps up the flashback. At that moment, Cain's escort knight speaks up. Since Ricardo isn't telling the full truth, he decides to explain it himself. According to him, Commander Scoven claims that Ghislaine, who never even trains, took down an orc with his bare hands and dealt with the traitorous escort knights all by himself. That's why Scoven got beaten up, which was meant to be a wake-up call for him for his lies. The knight smugly claims that none of this would have happened if Scoven hadn't lied in the first place. Ghislaine doesn't speak out loud, but in his thoughts, we learn how much he hates Cain. Apparently, Cain used to be his subordinate, and whenever he visited Pertium, he always caused a mess. Even after causing all that trouble, no one could say anything because he was basically one of the allies for House Pertium. No one ever looked down on Cain, unlike Ghislaine, who always had an inferiority complex. Cain's confidence and bold demeanor were praised as qualities befitting of an heir, which is why our boy was criticized more. Let's now turn our attention to Cain's perspective. This big jackass is amazed at how much patience Ghislaine is showing because usually he would have charged at him with this much provocation. We then flash back to a little while ago in Logis County. There, Cain got an order to kill Ghislaine. The one who gave him the order was the same hooded guy who had gotten a lot of slack from his leaders for failing his previous mission. The hooded guy promised Cain that if he succeeded in this task, the esteemed one would support the Logis family. Cain assured him that he could easily defeat Ghislaine since he was just a weak brat. But what bothered Cain was that Ghislaine was also an heir to this land, so he wasn't sure how he was going to eliminate him without complications. The hooded guy suggested they could lure Ghislaine into a duel, making it look like an unfortunate accident. It would simply appear as a trivial dispute between heirs. The hooded guy also promised to support Cain by disguising himself as an escort knight to orchestrate the situation so there would be no need for concern. The thought that he gets to kill his own cousin fascinates Cain, and the bastard agrees with this right away. In the present, Cain is thinking about why they want Ghislaine eliminated. He wonders if perhaps Ghislaine has changed a little, and that's the reason for the order. But in any case, Cain proceeds with the plan. In order to provoke Ghislaine, he calls out to him, asking why he's standing still. Since they're facing each other, he better make arrangements. Ghislaine has no clue what arrangements he's talking about. Cain reminds him that he's heard the festival has been interrupted, so why not liven up the mood and have an amazing time? He further reminds how they've always been in sync when it comes to things like this. Ghislaine doesn't react much, and cryptically asks if he's talking about alcohol. You see, this bastard always had Ghislaine prepare alcohol and women every time he came here. Ghislaine granted his request back then because he didn't want to get beaten up, but he's not going to comply with this bastard anymore. Because of Cain, he had to waste a lot of money, which is also why his father cut off his allowance. But it looks like Ghislaine has finally found the root cause of his money problems, and he's sure Cain is also the solution to this issue. Cain, on the other hand, keeps on demanding, telling him to bring the goods right now. Of course, Ghislaine plays along and tells Cain that he'll bring them right now, but first, he wants this bastard to repay the debts he owes. The hooded bastard can feel the aura and vibe Ghislaine is exuding. Even Cain gets serious and asks what debts he's talking about. Ghislaine just flashes a pleasant smile as he reminds him that he had been handling and arranging everything Cain asked of him with money, so now he wants that money back. At least 1,000 gold. Of course, the jackass is bewildered to hear such a ridiculous demand, because he believes that all of that should have cost no more than 100 gold. Besides, Cain always thought that Ghislaine did all of that because they were friends. It was like a friends with benefits situation. But well, Ghislaine wouldn't call their relationship friends, because he had been this bastard's doormat for the longest time. But now he wants this jackass to pay up if he values his life. He's in dire need of money, and he won't let this bastard get away without taking the dues. Silence fills the room, and even Ghislaine's knight, Ricardo, is sweating his balls from the bold declaration Ghislaine just made. The big guy furiously stands up, clearly enraged. He doesn't like the idea of Ghislaine getting too full of himself. He's sure that all the rumors Ghislaine is spreading about his deeds have gone to his head, which is why he's acting so bold now. To Cain, Ghislaine is still nothing but a parasite feeding off this land. So the bastard balls up his fist, ready to kill this leech once and for all. But even as the